Hey, how you doing? Arthur Wu here, and today I'm going to be walking you through how to load the magazine for an Aaton XTR Prod 16mm film camera. Now let's start by talking about the two sides here. Now this film magazine has a particular way that it's built, in the sense that this is the feed side. So if the film is loaded onto this side, and then once you want to start shooting, the film is then stored on this side, which is the take-up side. So the film is on two sides, and we have to work with two sides. So let's look at the feed side. What is all this stuff? Well, it's pretty straightforward, actually. There's only a couple of things really to note of. One is this thing called the measurement indicator, according to the manual. And what this does is this tells you how much film you've used. So it's either in feet or meters, depending on what system you're on. And basically, it's starting at the beginning point here. And if I let it go, it's depending on how much film I have left, it's going to land on a certain spot here. So I want to load a film here in a second, and we'll see how that works out. Basically, 400 feet is equivalent to about 11 minutes of shooting. And as you go down, you can kind of do the calculation in your head from there. So if you used about 200 feet left, that's about 5.5 minutes left of shooting. Now Kodak makes a pretty cool application for the phone, where basically you can enter in the number of feet, the number of frames per second you're shooting, and then it will calculate how much time you have left. And the next thing here is just the lock, which locks this door so that it doesn't come loose when you're shooting. So let's go ahead and load the film. So if we open this up here, we unlock this, the door opens like that. Now you see just a few things in here. It's not too complicated, but basically this is where you put the film core, and then you kind of feed it through here, through this thing, and it goes into here to the other side. So I have a piece of film here, just leftover film from a previous shoot. There's not much time left on here, so I figured I'd just open it up and show you guys. Normally you wouldn't want to expose it to light like this if you haven't processed it yet, but there's not that much left in here, so I thought I'd use it for demonstration purposes. So basically this is how it comes. There's not much left. Normally it'd be about the size of this right here, the circumference, the diameter would be about this big for a full 400-foot roll of film. But this is maybe about 15 feet left, which we'll see in a second. So you'll see it's kind of dark on this side here, but if I turn it over, you'll see it's light. This is the emulsion, which basically is the area that gets exposed from your lens and through the gate, and this is actually where your image gets created. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put this white plastic area right here, which is called the core, onto this here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to click, there's a button here that allows me to lock it into place so that it's not going to go anywhere. It's nice and tight. And then I'm just going to take the film, I'm going to roll it out. I'm going to go around here. And then with the emulsion side, the light brown side up, I'm going to just push it through here just a few times. So I typically like doing it maybe 4 or 5 times. It kind of gives me enough to go on the other side to work with. So that's 2, 3, 4, and 5. So you see here, the film is not going anywhere. There's enough going around the other side, and it's kind of taut enough by using this thing. And what I can do is I'm done. So I just want to make sure, again, this isn't going anywhere, make sure it's nice and tight. I'm going to close it. We're now going to lock this guy in place so the door doesn't open. And then we're going to want to set this. So normally if we had a full 400-foot roll, it will kind of stop around this 400 feet here. However, because it is a used roll, it's a small amount of film left. When I release it, you'll see that there's only about 15 feet left. So this is your indicator. So while you're shooting, you just kind of want to keep track of this just to make sure you have enough film left for each shot. All right, so now we flipped it over to the take-up side. And this side is actually, after you shoot the film, everything gets stored in here, and then you want to unload it in a dark area only because you don't want it to be exposed to light, to ambient light, until it gets processed. So let's open up the door here by unlatching that. And this is what it looks like. So the first thing you'll notice is that the film is kind of coming through here, the one that we pushed in from the other side. But there's a lot of other mechanical things happening here. Based on your camera's manual, you want to make sure that you load it correctly. So the film here, it kind of comes out, and then what I like to do is it has to go through this whole mechanism. But the first thing I like to do is I just want to take it and I want to push it through the top here. you'll see that it comes out this side. And then what you'll want to do is you'll then put it back in. There's a little slot here again where it feeds it through. Sorry, I have an overhead camera here, so it's a little hard to see. Normally I do this pretty quick. But okay, so now it's come through the other side. So now you'll see there's some film here. So the next thing you want to do is you need to run it through here. So these things have little teeth. I'll show you guys a close-up in a second. But these things have little teeth which hold the film into place with these perforations. So what we're going to do here, now that this is in place, I can then just put everything back in. So this side is pretty straightforward. I can just lock that in place. Lock that in. So that just kind of comes in. Next thing I'm going to do is pull it in. So one very important thing is that there has to be enough slack here in order to film to run through this whole thing correctly. So the way that most people do it is that they just do this thing called the 2-finger test, which you basically, if you have 2 fingers here, you put it there. It should be just snug enough, not too tight, not too loose, so that that's basically how much slack you want to have. The manual actually recommends 15 frames. And so essentially what you're doing is you're going to count 15 here. So, the size of my hand is about average, and so it does come out to 15 perforations, 15 frames. So now we run it through here, but we have to connect this to something. So normally this doesn't come with anything, but if you have a core, another white core, an empty core, you have to put this here so that it takes and holds your film. So you can buy these online. I can put a link in the description below, or if you have already used up another film core or another roll of film, you should have another one of these available. I'm going to go ahead and place this here so that it's tightened in. I'm going to lock that guy in. Put it down here so that there's not too much slack. And then once this is locked in, I can pretty much do whatever I need to do over here. So what I like to do is I like to kind of find, there's a little slot here. I personally like to put this in here. I don't know if that's the most correct way of doing it, but I just find it's a good starting point for holding the film into place. So you just want to turn it a few times. I've come to 3 revolutions, which I think is a good place to be as far as making sure that the film is actually being held in there. So that's 2. And that's 3. And you'll notice, if you're seeing this in real life, you'll notice that it's very tight. The film's not going anywhere because there's just so much tension on it now. And then what I want to do is, again, like the other side, click it through. And once that is done, now everything is loaded correctly. So I want to make sure this isn't hanging out too much, so you can just push that back in. And that's pretty much it. So basically, all of this film that you've kind of pushed through is kind of useless at this point just because it's been exposed to the light. So again, you don't want to expose it to the light. This side is okay because you need to see this to see what's happening. But once you have it set, once this door closes, you do not want to open this side up again. So once you shoot all your film, do not open this side up again. You want to put it into a tent where there's no light, a film tent, and then unload it, put it back into a canister. You're going to wrap that canister up with gaff tape, and then you're going to send that off to the film lab. So that's pretty much it. That is in a nutshell how you would load and unload the film magazine.
And one more tip, I've actually been recommended to seal up both the take-up and the feed side with gaff tape. That way, if there are any light leaks within the magazine for whatever reason, the gaff tape will seal that off. As well as if you accidentally bump the magazine or bump the camera, that the magazine won't accidentally open on you. So just one more tip to leave with you guys.
All right, I hope that was helpful for you guys. Again, every camera is going to be slightly different as far as how you load the film in. So you either want to consult the manual or you want to ask someone who's familiar with that camera to kind of walk you through the steps of how to do it. All right, if you have any questions, please post them in the comments below. You can check out my work at arthurwu.com, and for more reviews and tips, you can subscribe to this channel. All right, guys, until next time, peace.